Okay, so we are back. We are now ready to start with this problem right here. Okay, and again, we're finding the derivative. Those are the first two that we did. So now let's go to finding the derivative. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my f of s. So I've got f of s equals I'm going to rewrite it as s squared plus 1 over s squared plus 4 all to the power of 1/2. Okay, so now I can see, looking at this, right, I can see that I've got an outer function of s to the 1/2, and I've got an inner function of s squared plus 1 over s squared plus 4. Okay, so in order to use the formula that I'm going to keep on using the formulas that I have, I'm actually going to rewrite this. This is not going to impact my answer at all. I'm just going to, instead of writing it as little f, just to keep my notation straight, we're going to call this big F of s, okay? So I'm going to have my chain rule. Chain rule says is if I've got f of s as my outer of my inner, then f prime of s is going to be f prime evaluated at my inner times g prime. Okay, so that's in the back of my mind, that's what I'm thinking. So for my outer, which is s to the 1/2, we'll just call this big F of s, because remember, big or little f of s, and my inner is going to be g of s. So I need f prime of s, and I need g prime of s. And then once I have f prime and g prime, I'll be able to put them into my formula for the chain rule and get the derivative of this function that I want. Okay, so my outer f of s is s to the 1/2. I can use my power rule to get that f prime is actually equal to 1/2 s to the negative 1/2. Okay, and now what about g prime? Okay, so this might be a little bit more difficult. For g prime, let's see here, I need so I know that a lot of you use the quotient rule, so I'm going to figure out the quotient rule right quick. So if I have f over g prime, so this is for the quotient rule, and I'm trying to see what is that equal to. So I'm actually going to write this as f g to the negative 1 prime, which is going to give me f prime g to the negative 1 plus f g to the negative 1 prime, right? So I'm using the product rule there. And now I'll have f prime over g, because that's what g to the negative 1 sounds like. And now I'll have plus f times, this will be negative g to the negative 2 g prime. Okay, so I actually just used the chain rule there. So I have f prime g minus f g prime over g squared. And then I get a common denominator, f prime g over g squared minus f g prime over g squared equals f prime g minus f g prime over g squared. Okay. F prime g minus f g prime. Okay. So I need the derivative of the top. The derivative, so I've got s squared plus 1. So the derivative of the top, which is going to be 2s, times the bottom, which is s squared plus 4, minus the derivative of the bottom, 2s, times the top, which is s squared plus 1, all divided by the bottom squared. Quantity squared. Okay. So now, let's see here. So I'm ready for my chain rule. Okay, so f prime of s is going to equal little f prime of g of s times g prime of s. Okay. Now, little f prime of g of s. My f prime is 1/2 s to the negative 1/2. So this will be 1/2 g of s to the negative 1/2, right? Times my g prime. What is g prime? All of that. Whew. Okay. In fact, let me just, it'd be so great if I could just do this. Copy, paste. Haha. I love technology. Okay. So now this is equal to, let's see here, maybe we can make my little zoom bigger. Okay, so this is now equal to, now this 1/2 g of s to the negative 1/2, this is the same as 1/2 times 1 over the square root of g of s, right? Times that. Okay. And now, the last thing we need to do is substitute what is 1/2, 1 over the square root of g of s. G of s is up here, so this is s squared plus 1 over s squared plus 4. So we need the square root of s squared plus 1 over s squared plus 4 times, and then we've got this business right here, which is, I think I just paste it. There we go. Okay, and so we can simplify this a little bit. So I'm actually going to simplify it. Let me do it in a different color. So to simplify, so I'm going to have 1/2 times square root s squared plus 4 over the square root s squared plus 1. Okay, and then it is times, this will be 2s cubed plus 8s minus 2s cubed minus 2s all over s squared plus 4 squared. So f prime of s equals, which is equal to, so we should have some stuff canceling out. So the minus 2s and the 2s cancel out. Okay, and then the 8s and the negative 2s are going to result in 6s. So we have 6s, but we also have this 1/2, right? So we've got 6s, we've got 1 over 2, we've got a square root of s squared plus 4, and s squared plus 1 to the 1/2, and the denominator here, s squared plus 4 squared. So I can rewrite this numerator as s squared plus 4 to the 1/2. And now this 1/2 and this 2, right, because the base is the same, we can do some canceling. And instead of having 2, we can have 1.5 out here, right? And then erase this, make that a 1. And now instead of 6s over 2, we can do some canceling here with this 6s and this 2. and we can just have this be 3s. Okay, 3s, and then eliminate this. So our final answer would then be, I think we're supposed to do it in red, f prime of s equals 3s over s squared plus 1 to the 1/2, s squared plus 4 to the 3/2. Okie dokie. Let's move on to the next one. Now again here, we are first going to need to do the power rule.